Welcome to Let's Talk Merrimack. My name is Mary Beth Raven. I'm your host today. I'm a 35-year resident of Merrimack with my husband. We've raised our 2 kids today here in Merrimack. The goal of the show is to talk about things that concern Merrimack residents and encourage you to get involved in the town. So today's show focuses on the Senate campaign. I'm joined today by Karishma Manzur.
Thank you.
She's one of the candidates for the Senate seat that Senator Jeanne Shaheen is going to be vacating next term. So welcome, Karishma, and thanks for joining us. Let's jump right in. I'm going to have some serious questions, and then at the end we'll have a little lightning round of, fun get-to-know-you questions. So first, why did you decide to run for Senate?
Right. So first of all, thank you so much, Mary Beth. Thank you very much for having me. There's so many reasons why the people in our country are suffering. So when I'm a scientist and I was working in medical research for a long time. And the reason I went into research was to improve the lives of people who are suffering from serious illnesses. So I worked in medical research for 20 years, specifically on epilepsy and depression, and it was so heartening. But I realized many of the treatments I was working on will never be accessible to millions of Americans because either they don't have health insurance or because of underinsurance. We live in the richest country in the world. Why are we not able to provide a universal health coverage and cover all Americans? So this was something that was really bothering me. We need a single-payer universal health care plan that will cover all Americans and will be cheaper than the current system. The only way to bring about that change is through the federal government, through Congress. The folks in my town of Exeter are suffering, people in New Hampshire are suffering, people across the country are suffering. But you cannot make small changes like, which are extremely important, like Medicaid expansion or ACA subsidy expansion, et cetera. Those are great, but those are still not covering all Americans. Mm-hmm. So the best way to get to the root cause of the problem is through implementing a universal health coverage. So that is why one of the main reasons I'm actually interested in going to the U.S. Senate. We need to pass this. And so, Mary Beth, one other thing I want to mention about healthcare. We are the only developed country in the entire world that does not provide a universal healthcare plan. It is a tragic situation. And as a scientist, I look at numbers. At the moment, in the United States, on an annual basis, we lose 50,000 people per year because of our insurance issue. 50,000 Americans die each year. What is the population of Merrimack? Do you happen to know?
About 25, 28,000.
Imagine twice the population of Merrimack is being lost in the country. Wouldn't you say that's a huge issue?
If it's a preventable death, we would, right.
Yes, absolutely. And because we don't provide healthcare, universal healthcare coverage, so many people are lacking like primary care or accessing care, that one of the big issues is a poor American has a 10 to 15 year lower life expectancy than a rich American. I'm going to repeat that because that is unacceptable. A poor American, on average, will live a shorter lifespan than a rich American.
Right.
That is unacceptable, and that is why I'm running for the U.S. Senate.
It flies in the face of with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
That's not really...
We're not living
like
free. We're living
value.
Short life. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you're a scientist.
Yes.
So you're a scientist who's decided to join politics.
Yes.
So, what makes you qualified to be a senator? Because that's a very different... arena than the scientific and the research arena.
So whether you're talking about the U.S. Senate or a state level position or a town level position, the most important part about a public servant is, do you care? And will you do something about the fact that folks are suffering? So kindness and compassion are underrated at the moment. We're always looking for folks, qualifying them because they have money. Oh, they're a millionaire or they're a billionaire. They can fund their own campaign. That in our mind, sometimes we think that's a quality that we're looking for in a candidate. No, absolutely not. Or we're thinking a lawyer is going to be be effective in the U.S. Congress, or a business person will be effective in the U.S. Congress. So first of all, let's step away from these positions because we actually want all kinds of positions and professions and education and life experiences to be represented in the Congress, because we are a beautiful country of folks from various incomes and backgrounds, and the United States Congress should represent that, right? All the diversity of ideas and races and education, etc. So, for example, but at the core of that, every person who goes into public service, whether it's at the select board, in a town select board, or in the governor's mansion here in New Hampshire, or at the Congress, do they care? Do they have compassion? Do they understand the suffering of others? And will they do something about it? So I talked about healthcare as one of the driving forces for my decision to run for the U.S. Senate. The other issues are housing crisis, and we see this. It's such a severe problem across New Hampshire. So there's one face of the housing crisis, which is people are just on the streets. They're homeless. And you see this in Manchester and Concord. But you also see this in towns like Exeter or Epping, which is another town in the seacoast. Folks are sleeping in their cars, Mary Beth. They're sleeping in their cars. They put up T-shirts to block off their windows. When you see those images, doesn't that absolutely
Well, especially on a day like today, right? We're recording this in January, and it was like 5 degrees this morning.
Yes.
So.
I mean, my feet are still cold, even though this is a warm space. Yes, absolutely. And imagine, people are sleeping. And these folks many of them have jobs, but they cannot afford an apartment, or housing, buying is out of reach. They can't even afford an apartment because they are working maybe at McDonald's or Walmart, but the wages are so low. These starvation wages are not allowing people to rent. And the rents are $1,500, $2,000. So that's one face of
and that's
homelessness.
Just for a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's one face of homelessness, which means you're on the streets. Maybe you don't even own a tent. Maybe you own a tent, or maybe you own a car. You're sleeping in the car. Another face of homelessness means that you are actually couch surfing. You are in someone's house, in a relative's house or a friend's house. Maybe you stay a week here, a month there. There's constantly, you don't have a place of your own. I was talking the other day to a young lady. She has a full-time job, but she cannot afford an apartment. So she and 3 other folks are renting a space together. 4 people in one apartment. So I asked, is there enough bedrooms for all 4 of you? And she said, no, I sleep in the closet. She has a full-time job in New Hampshire. She sleeps in a closet, Mary Beth. Tell me if that doesn't break your heart.
So if you're elected to the Senate, what are some of the strategies that you have from the point of view of a senator to address this issue?
So in the richest country in the world, everyone should be able to afford healthy food, housing, and health care. So let's talk about those 3 things. Those are going to be my focus when I go to the U.S. Senate. We need livable wages. Our federal minimum wage is stuck at $7.25 an hour since 2009. It's unacceptable. In 2021, President Biden tried to increase the minimum wage from $7.25 to $15 an hour. Both Senator Shaheen and Senator Hassan voted against it. It broke my heart. I'm a lifelong Democrat. How can folks who are there to represent us, who are millionaires actually, how can they not have the heart to change a starvation wage to a less starvation wage? Even at $15 an hour, people will suffer, but it'll be better than $7.25. What is the purpose of public service if you're not there to serve the public? So one of the things that I absolutely will champion is we have to increase the minimum wage to a livable wage. And we need a federal minimum wage to be at least $20 an hour. So this is one thing. The other is housing. We need to provide rental assistance, and we need to build more affordable housing. Not $1 million homes. Those are not affordable. We need to build affordable housing. The other way we have to tackle the housing crisis is that private equity is purchasing large apartment complexes, single-family homes, and they're turning us into a generation of renters. In the United States, one of the ways most people build up private wealth, or personal wealth, I should say, is through home ownership. If you take away home ownership, then by the time you're retiring, you don't have that a base to retire from. We need to stop private equity from becoming purchasing all these places. And the third thing is healthcare. So we need to pass a universal healthcare plan. And the only universal healthcare plan that has been introduced in the Senate and the House for the last several years is Medicare for All. And so people have to understand there is no other plan out there. Medicare for All is the only comprehensive universal healthcare plan that has been introduced in the Senate year after year by Senator Sanders, and in the House year after year by Representative Jayapal. So it broke my heart to also find out that both our senators and our two representatives have never co-sponsored Medicare for All. So not only do the Republicans not co-sponsor Medicare for All, neither of our 4 elected officials, Democrats, they don't sponsor it either. I personally think that is heartbreaking.
So if you end up representing us in the Senate, so Medicare for All is something that you would support.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't necessarily try to introduce a different approach.
Medicare for All is a fantastic piece of legislation. Okay. Absolutely, yes. We need that is, yes. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Okay. So you've talked about a couple of your strengths and some of your approach already. So you're from closer to the seacoast, from the Exeter area. So when it comes to representing New Hampshire, you've mentioned healthcare and housing. What are some of the other New Hampshire issues that come to mind that are near and dear to your heart that make you want to represent New Hampshire?
Right. Well, in New Hampshire, housing crisis is the biggest problem at the moment. It's literally the biggest problem, whether it's homelessness, folks are on the streets, or couch surfing, or can't afford apartments. And our young folks are leaving the state because they can't afford to live here. How can we create a situation where our next generation is leaving the state? We are already the second oldest state in the union after Maine. I think Maine is the oldest, and we are the second oldest.
I did not know that.
Yes. We need to create a situation where young folks want to stay. I've talked to people, kids who say, I want to stay in the same town where I grew up because I want to be close to my family, my relatives, but I can't afford to live here. They've moved to Indiana. Some of them have moved to Maine. People are moving to Massachusetts. Young folks are moving to Massachusetts. And why are we creating a situation where our young folks can't afford to stay here? So this is one thing. I also talk to business owners who say they have positions available to hire folks, but people can't afford to live in that town, so they cannot attract talent. They cannot attract employees. And so from a business perspective...
Is the situation worse in New Hampshire with regard to housing, or is this a national crisis?
At the national level, yes. But New Hampshire is really, the property taxes are really hurting folks. It's becoming unaffordable to live here. I'll give you an example. In my town of Exeter, I don't know how it is in Merrimack, but in my town of Exeter, we have a lot of manufactured home neighborhoods. So these manufactured homes, those neighborhoods are interesting because you own the structure, but you don't own the land. You actually have to pay rent. It tends to be for a lot of folks that's an affordable mode of living. So I have talked to people in my town of Exeter who are maybe in their 70s or their 80s, and they purchased the structure for $150,000 or $200,000, and they figured based on their retirement income, their Social Security, they'll be able to afford the mortgage on that. And the rent on the lot was maybe several $100s. And so they calculated several years ago, yes, I can afford that mortgage, yes, I can afford that lot rent, and I can afford to retire with dignity and survive on this in this house. Several ways that these folks are getting impacted. One, those neighborhoods are no longer owned by families. They're being purchased by private equity. They come in, they say, oh, we're going to fix up the roads, we're going to fix up the plumbing, we're going to do all of these. They make these false promises, and then a year or two later, they don't make those upgrades. If anything, they increase the lot rent. Okay. This is one way a person who thought it was an affordable living is now being impacted. The next thing is, they thought their home was worth $150,000, right? That was their mortgage. But now, because of the housing crisis, their structure is being assessed as $400,000 or $500,000, and then now they're having to pay property taxes based on an assessment fee of $400,000 instead of $150,000. These people are, these folks that I'm talking to, these are retired folks. They are on fixed income. Now they're spending 50 to 60% of their income just trying to pay for their mortgage, their high lot rent, and now their property taxes. There's sometimes they say, Karishma, I'm one payment away from homelessness. Think about that, Mary Beth. Like, how can it not break your heart to hear this? So I'm hearing the suffering of young folks. I'm hearing the suffering of the older generation. Of course, there's people in the middle that are also suffering. Yesterday, I was talking to someone. He's 35 years old. He's working in construction. It's a decent income. He and his wife can survive on it, but they've decided not to have children. They cannot afford to have children. Not because they don't want to have children. They just can't afford it. What is the meaning of live free if these folks cannot live free? Those young folks, they are not living free. The situation, their financial situations, forcing them to leave the state. That is not living free. The older folks are thinking they're going to be homeless soon or have the anxiety of that.
Right. I mean, certainly here in Merrimack, there's been a lot of discussion about increased property taxes. I know personally,
Yes.
our taxes for our house, we do own our own house. They went up about $1,000 this year, and they went up about $1,000 the year before. And so lots of people have been discussing this. But we've been discussing it primarily like as a local issue. So how does someone in the Senate help us address this?
That's a good point. So why is the property tax going up? So the towns still have to provide for, they have to still clean the streets, they have to salt the streets, they have to provide for services, keep the town going. They are not receiving enough support from the state. And the state is getting squeezed partially because we've cut income tax, we've cut business and dividends tax. We are cutting all our revenue sources. And the federal government is not giving the states enough resources. So let me explain why we are paying so much in taxes and yet we are not seeing the benefits. And I agree with folks when they say, I am being squeezed. My paycheck, when I get the weekly paycheck or the bi-weekly paycheck and I see large amounts of money have been deducted in federal taxes, etc. I agree with you. Yes, folks should not pay any more taxes. Absolutely. But the federal government, what it's doing is, we're talking about, Donald Trump ran on like fraud, waste, and abuse. Fraud, waste, and abuse is still going on. And one of the biggest fraud, waste, and abuse is the Department of Defense. We are spending almost $1 trillion of our taxpayer dollars are being spent by the Department of Defense on funding, on programs that are benefiting just a handful of defense contractors. Now with all these mergers, it's like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon RTX, Boeing, just a handful. They're receiving the bulk of that $1 trillion. And what are they doing with that money? They're basically using it to generate conflict, right? Or bombing kids in Gaza or bombing people elsewhere. That $1 trillion, people should care because those are bread and butter issues. The $1 trillion that's being spent outside, bombing people, it's not coming back to our state. It's not coming back to the town of Merrimack or to Exeter or anywhere. And so what's happening is we're still paying high federal taxes, and yet the state is suffering, the town is suffering, and then we're being asked to pay again property taxes to bridge that gap. The Congress should be working for the people of the United States, not for war profiteers, not for donors that support Donald Trump, and not for foreign governments. Foreign government, and we can talk about that for a second. The United States government should be working for the benefit of American people. And so yes, at the federal level, if you fix this problem about where the revenue is actually spent, we will see the benefits of that here in our towns.
Okay. So I want to move on and just ask.
Yes.
This is your opportunity. No, this is good. This is your opportunity to differentiate yourself from the other Democratic Senate candidates. So what makes you different from Chris Pappas and the other folks who are running for Senate?
Yeah, so let me just say, so Representative Pappas and I have clear policy differences. So Representative Pappas has been in Congress for 7 years now, so this is his 4th term. So to start with, a topic at the moment that's on a lot of folks' minds is what's coming out of Minnesota, the ICE, the cruelty that we're seeing on a daily basis. Those videos are capturing the cruelty and the terrorizing of folks by ICE agents in Minnesota. ICE needs to be abolished. That's my clear stance. And Representative Pappas talks about reforming it. I mean, you cannot reform a system that has become so corrupt, and it's becoming a paramilitary force that is answering to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is somebody who always tries to divide us by making us hate each other, making us fear each other. And if we are worried about like our neighbor or our folks, but basically, sorry, Gesundheit, bless you. So Donald Trump is using ICE as a paramilitary service that is hurting our communities.
Keep talking. I'm sorry.
Go for it. Another sneeze. Come on, round 2. So ICE has to be abolished. That's one of the clear differences between myself and Chris Pappas. The second thing is Representative Pappas has never co-sponsored Medicare for All. So he's not supporting universal health care coverage. I will. Representative Pappas has also approved billions of dollars of weapons transfers to Israel to fuel a genocide against the Palestinians. I would never do that. For me, human life matters, regardless of whether it's a human life in the United States or across the world. We are all God's creatures. We have to protect each other, and we cannot keep bombing folks. The third thing is, fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's so many I've forgotten. He has taken over $800,000 from pro-Israel lobbies like AIPAC. I will never do that. My work will be to serve the people of New Hampshire and in the United States Congress, not serve a foreign government. Absolutely not. Representative Pappas has also voted for the Lake and Riley Act. This was basically circumventing due process, which we see now that's in place. I would never vote on a piece of legislation that is basically going to be unconstitutional, because due process is protected by the Constitution for everyone in the United States, not just American citizens within the boundaries of the United States. Another thing is Charlie Kirk had a horrendous death, and I feel for his family, but Charlie Kirk was a white supremacist, and there was a piece of resolution to honor Charlie Kirk, and Representative Pappas voted for that. I would never vote to honor a white supremacist. So there are policy differences between myself and Representative Pappas, yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so we have a few minutes left, so I'm going to move to something a little lighter. We're going to do a lightning round, get to know you a little bit.
Go for it.
So I'm going to be like asking questions like this. Ice cream, hard or soft?
Hard.
Okay. Favorite sport?
That's a good one. American football.
Really?
Watching as a spectator.
Well, especially right now, right?
Yes.
We're in the playoffs.
Oh God,
it's
yes.
wicked exciting.
Yes.
Of course. Even if the Patriots aren't in the playoffs?
Don't say that.
Okay, water, ocean or lake?
Ocean.
All right. Fruit, apples or oranges?
That's a good one. Oranges if I just want to eat raw, but apples when it's cooked. Oh, delicious.
Yes. And last one, pets, dogs or cats?
Oh my God, you're going to get me in trouble with that one. I'm going to go with.
Suppose you could say you can't decide.
I love both, but
right.
It almost feels like cats own the humans. We are the cats' pets.
Yeah.
But if I wanted a pet, dogs.
Okay. All right. So this has been a very short conversation, and you doubtless have much more that you would like to share with the public.
Yes.
The show is going to put up contact information on the screen if you would like to learn more about Karishma or get involved with her campaign. So thank you very much. That is our show for today. We would like to hear your ideas for additional shows. So reach out to Let's Talk Merrimack Let's Talk Merrimack at gmail.com. We'd love to hear your ideas. And also don't forget to please try to get involved, whether it's in a candidate for election, whether it's on a town council or a town committee. We encourage you all to participate in Merrimack. Thank you very much, folks. Bye-bye.